In ancient times, there was an endless war between humans and monsters, with no end in sight. Thousands of years ago, Emperor Yu used the power of pattern for the first time. With this power, the emperor managed to seal the progenitor of the monsters. Since then, the monsters had sought to break the seal, leading to a centuries-long war with humans. When the emperor felt that his time was running out, he bestowed the power of the pattern, capable of defeating monsters, to 5 families. From that moment on, humanity began to use the level of the pattern as a status designation. Level 9 for the most noble, Level 1 for the lowest born. Currently, one of the lowest born humans was working as a salesman in a store. A customer came into the store and began to resent that people with the lowest pattern level were only wasting air, so he asked the salesman for cigarettes. As you can see, the customer had a pattern around his neck, showing that the customer had a level 5 pattern. The guy pulled out the item the buyer asked for and asked for payment of 30 yuan. The man began to resent that the salesman had no conscience since he was asking him for money. After all, he's fighting monsters to protect a pathetic bunch of scum like the salesman. The man became indignant and called for the manager. The manager immediately appeared in front of the buyer and asked what the buyer wanted from him. The man demanded that the salesman be fired because the salesman demanded that he pay for the merchandise and not just take it. Soon in the store's locker room, the manager was apologizing to Chi. However, the guy understood everything perfectly well and decided to quit his job himself, so as not to cause the manager any problems. Chi reminds us that they have experienced this kind of treatment more than once. People with high-level patterns will never consider low-level people as their equals, and in fact, they will not consider them as people at all. Guy notes that his dismissal is not the manager's fault. Sun has always treated him well, so he asks that Sun not feel guilty. The manager only hoped that the guy would get lucky in the future and gave him half a month's salary. As soon as Chi walked out of the store, his sister immediately approached him. The sister reported that she had sold her painting and earned 1,000 yuan. She excitedly told him that soon she would have a lot of money and then the brother wouldn't have to work several jobs at the same time. Her brother, on the other hand, felt that his sister's health was more important to him, so he wanted to take all the financial burdens on himself. Passing by the food counter, the sister couldn't look away. The brother asked the sister if she wanted ice cream. However, the sister remarks that her health is poor, so she cannot eat cold. The brother thought that on rare occasions, one could afford to eat such a thing as well. So he approached the vendor and asked for 1 strawberry ice cream. As soon as the sister took the ice cream, the first thing she asked the brother was if he wanted to try the ice cream. However, the guy thought that ice cream was only for children. The sister happily started eating the ice cream, so the brother didn't want to spoil the mood and decided to tell her about the dismissal after they got home. Suddenly, the street where the brother and sister were shook violently. The street shook because of the sudden appearance of a giant monster. People tried to run away from the monster. They wondered how the monster appeared in this area. After all, it was under the protection of the Zhong family. The brother grabbed his sister's hand and decided to run to the shelter. He thought that there must be someone from the Zhong family patrolling nearby. If they managed to take shelter, they would be safe. The sudden appearance of the monster caused the girl to drop her ice cream and looked at him sadly. The sister couldn't run because of her poor health, so she immediately started coughing. The brother noticed that his sister couldn't run and lifted her up on his shoulder. This was the first time the guy had heard of monsters being able to enter a protected area, so he thought something strange was going on. The Zhong family was one of the 5 families that received a gift from Emperor Yu. The giant monster was just around the corner, but people were still trying to save their lives and running as hard as they could. The guy was still trying to realize why the monster appeared in the Zhong family's territory. He realized that he needed to be more careful the next time he went out into the city. The most important task at the moment was to get his sister Lin Lin to the shelter. As he ran up to the shelter, he noticed that there were a lot of people standing near the shelter. He asked Auntie Jiang, who knew him, why everyone was standing outside and no one was entering the shelter. However, the answer came quickly enough. The man at the entrance of the shelter asked everyone to take their time. He explained that there were a limited number of seats in the shelter, so those with patterns below the 3rd level would not be able to enter the shelter. The ordinary people were shocked when they heard such terrible things. They couldn't understand why they were going to be left to die and not allowed into the shelter. Someone even suggested that everyone should run inside and then the man wouldn't be able to stop them. Chi stepped forward and notices that if people crowd near the entrance of the shelter, it will attract the attention of the monsters, and the shelter won't last long. He notices that the area is under the protection of the Zhong family, so they should be sending someone to help soon, and then everyone won't have to stay in the shelter for long. The man notices that the guy knows a lot, and since he knows a lot, he must be strong. So the man suggests Chi to take the monster away from this place, because according to Chi, the Zhong family will soon come and save everyone. However, at that moment, the man noticed that the guy only has a level 1 pattern, so the guy can't enter the shelter. People began to complain that the man just wanted them dead, he just wanted to survive. Someone pointed out that he had a level 3 pattern, so he asked to be let inside the shelter. Someone started complaining that because of the slowness of the process, they would die faster before they checked the pattern levels of everyone present. A general panic started and people were swearing at each other, which was what the man wanted. However, at this moment, Chi decided to change things and said that he would try to distract the monster and drive it away, but everyone else should take cover in the shelter. The man was shocked when he heard such words from the guy. Chi decided to go on an incredibly dangerous mission, so the first thing he did was to approach Auntie Jiang and ask her to look after his sister. The sister was scared, but her brother told her not to worry, because he would come back right away after taking the monster away from this place. The guy wondered if everyone would be able to enter the shelter now. The man was shocked at such a reckless decision by the guy and didn't know what to say. Chi points out that the man should let everyone into the shelter, or else he will regret later that many people died because of his fault. Other people felt that the man didn't care about them. Some were even still trying to force their way in, hoping to get into the shelter. Eventually the man gave up and said that everyone could enter the shelter but had to observe the line. He even snidely remarks that the guy will definitely die. The sister is upset by such words. Chi only went as a lone warrior to the front lines while everyone else entered the shelter. The monster happened to be very close to the shelter, so the guy sprang into action. He started to draw the monster's attention to himself. The monster seemed strange to the guy, so he worried that the shelter might be in danger. The guy remembered well his rough childhood with his sister. He had a level 1 pattern and his sister had a level 0 pattern. In a society where level 9 pattern holders are at the top, the brother and sister were considered trash, so they were kicked out of the house. However, all these patterns had already bored the guy. The most important task for him right now was to get the monster away from the shelter for Lin Lin's sake. He kept running away and hiding again and again, then running away from the monster again and hiding again. In the end, the guy was too tired. He couldn't understand why the people from the Zhong family never arrived to deal with the monster. The guy thought that the monster looked like a tarantula. Such spiders usually hunted by relying on vibrations, so he tried to calm himself down, although it was difficult because he was too tired. The monster at this very moment loomed over the guy's head. The monster decided not to torture its victim any longer and attacked the guy. But at that moment a lightning bolt appeared and someone interfered with the monster. As it turned out, a girl with a halberd appeared behind the guy's back. She used the magic shield created with the halberd to block the monster's strike. The one who saved the guy was a girl with snow-white hair and horns on her head, as if she was a dragon in human form. The girl took advantage of the moment, and a ghostly dragon materialized on the end of her halberd. After that, she directed her attack towards the monster, and the dragon passed through the monster. The monster was instantly defeated, and she couldn't take her eyes off the defeated monster. The girl immediately inquired if the guy was okay after the monster attack. Chi noticed that the girl had a 6-level pattern, so he thought that she was one of the Zhong family's elite fighters. He admitted that he was fine. However, at this moment, the entire area near them shook again. As it turned out, the monster was still not dead and managed to rise again. The girl is disappointed that the monster is not dead, so she is already seriously going to deal with the monster. This time the monster threw the girl into the wall with ease. The guy only had time to run up to the girl and help her to her feet before the monster was immediately beside them. The girl was frustrated and didn't realize how the monster had gotten stronger after coming back to life. She wanted to report this situation to the head of the family as soon as possible. However, the girl realized that she would go to report the situation to the family, then the monster would deal with the guy first, and then quickly catch up with her as well. However, if she fights the monster and lets the guy escape, they might have a chance of survival. She tells the guy to run away. The girl wants the guy to go to the head of her family and report that the D-class monster has been upgraded to C-class after being revived. The guy is worried about the girl, but she is determined and states that they each have an important mission. However, this is when Chi messes things up as he gets a headache. The girl can't understand what's going on. She tries to push the guy aside as the monster was rapidly approaching them. In defiance, the guy grabs the girl's hand. Suddenly, the guy's forehead glowed and his body was enveloped by golden energy. It was as if he was being filled with divine power and a horn grew on his head. The guy was still trying to understand what had just happened to him, as even his clothes had changed. However, the monster didn't want to leave the guy no chance, so it tried to attack him. This time Chi didn't flinch or retreat, and attacked the monster with his dragon power. The guy noticed that the dragon was similar to the one the girl had used. He wondered how he had managed to use the girl's skill. The girl admitted that she didn't know how she teamed up with the guy. She noticed that not only could the guy use her abilities, but his abilities were stronger than hers. Chi Yui didn't fully understand what was even happening to him. However, he decided that he should deal with the monster first and then try to think things through. The girl agrees with him. The guy seems to have decided that he will now be Gilgamesh, so he summoned a multitude of swords. And after that, the guy brought all those phantom swords down on the monster, destroying it. The girl was glad that they still managed to defeat such a dangerous monster. Despite the damage it had received, the monster was still showing signs of life. Therefore, without even an ounce of doubt, Chi Yui detonated all the phantom swords that had entered the monster's body. Only after that did the monster stop giving signs of life. The guy wondered if the monster was actually dead, considering how many times the monster didn't give up. The girl advises the guy to cautiously approach the monster and check it out. Chi Yui decided to follow the girl's advice and went to the monster. However, as soon as he got close to the monster, he and the girl split into two separate bodies again. At the same moment, he began to fall down, for he was just an ordinary person. However, his life was saved as the girl managed to pick the guy up in her arms before he fell to the ground and crashed. After that, she landed safely together with the guy. Because of the strange situation that occurred, they even both blushed, and the girl put the guy on the ground. After that, Chi Yui thanked the girl for her help, but she disagreed because she was the one who should thank the guy. At this moment, the girl's subordinates appeared. She ordered the subordinates to start the auxiliary operation after the disaster as usual. The girl then grabbed the guy's hand and dragged him behind her. Chi Yui wanted to go to his sister since she was still in the shelter. However, the girl noticed that since the sister was in the shelter, she was safe. The girl had a few questions for the guy. She took him aside and wondered why the guy was able to use her power. Chi Yui himself couldn't understand, since this was the first time this had happened to him. The girl started looking at the guy with a serious look, which made the guy worried. After that, the girl handed the guy her business card and told him that if he needed anything, he could contact her. The guy amusedly wondered if they would take him to a research institute for an autopsy to find out the cause of his powers. The girl only laughed at such assumptions of the guy. She decided to reassure the guy that he was too rare a specimen. Considering his life, the guy thought it didn't sound like he was special, but that he belonged to an endangered species. She announces that she will protect the guy. A subordinate ran up to the girl and handed her a phone, informing her that the master was looking for a girl. The girl took the phone and started talking to the master. The subordinate looked at the guy with displeasure and even called him low-level trash. The girl finished talking on the phone and immediately called out to the subordinate. He immediately bent down to take the phone from the girl and asked what else he could help his miss with. However, to his surprise, his miss informed him that she was firing him. The subordinate helplessly fell to the ground, trying to realize how he lost his job. Chi Yui, on the other hand, asks the girl not to pay attention to such statements to him because he is already used to such things. However, to his surprise, the girl thanks him again and gives him a gift, a card. She asks the guy to accept her gift because he saved not only her, but also all those who were on the street. The guy looked at the card the girl gave him and then put it in his pocket. The girl's name was written on the card, Zhong Yuyan. Chi Yui accepted the gift from the girl, then said goodbye and went to the shelter where his sister was. Looking after him, Zhong Yuyan said that this guy was the key to resolving the whole situation. Soon the sister had to be taken to the hospital. Qi Yue applied cold compresses to her head to bring down her fever. The sister tried to reassure her brother, noticing that she was fine. However, the brother noticed that the sister's temperature had risen slightly. He thought it was because the girl had been scared a lot yesterday. As soon as he returned to the shelter after fighting the monster, his sister immediately ran up to him and hugged him. The people who were in the shelter were happy that the guy was alive and greeted him as a hero because he had saved everyone. A man immediately ran up and got on all fours in front of the guy. He apologized for deliberately putting people in a difficult situation, so he asked that the guy ask the Zhong family so they wouldn't fire the man. The man did not do this at all sincerely, he was only worried about his job. It was too humiliating for him to bow down in front of a guy with a level 1 pattern. Lying in the hospital bed, the sister apologizes to her brother and admits that she feels like she's pulling her brother back. She wanted to say that her brother almost died yesterday because of her, but her brother interrupts her and refuses to listen to such words. He points out that outsiders' conversations are not about their family. So if the sister feels guilty, let her make him the best radish and pork rib soup when she recovers. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door of the girl's room. The brother decides to go and see who came, and he asks his sister to take her medicine and get a good night's sleep. As soon as he came out of the hospital room, he was greatly surprised. In front of the sister's hospital room gathered incredibly many people, so the guy could not help but be surprised by this turn of events. Qi Yue wonders if the people came because of Miss Zhong. The guy immediately admits that this is the case and he is following Miss Zhong's instruction. However, the blonde guy with glasses immediately runs up to the guy and informs him that if he falls into the clutches of the first guy's family, he will become useless. The blonde guy with glasses thought the guy was interesting, as the guy was a low-level pattern holder and has abilities like a high-level one. The blonde guy with glasses thought that this was a new mutation, and he was eager to study this mutation. Qi Yu was stunned by such remarks towards him. A girl standing nearby remarks that scientists are crazy and that they only want to study someone or dissect them. She tries to seduce the guy and wonders if he wants to join the Shen family. After all, they are no less noble than the Zhong family. Suddenly, the guy is in incredible demand. The Zhong and Shen families wanted to get their hands on him. Someone present also noticed that his family also wanted to get the guy. They were surprised that the guy was being offered the best options. However, the guy was not so simple. He only saw strained smiles in their gazes. People still thought he was trash. They thought he was just lucky and that any of the families just wanted to squeeze everything out of him and throw him away. In their minds, they only thought that he was trash, and thus would always remain trash. Qi Yue did not underestimate himself, so he informed the others that since they wanted him to join one of their families, he wanted to talk to everyone in turn. And after that, he would decide which family he would go to. This antics of the guy infuriated almost everyone present. They began to resent that the guy is taking too much on himself, and after all, he is only a low level. However, the guy didn't lose his pride, and he pointed out that everyone present should realize that they were the ones begging him to join them. The guy even showed in front of the eyes of those present the card that Zhong Yuyan had given him. Qi Yue informs the guy who was from the Zhong family that since the eldest daughter of the family kindly invited him, he feels it is too disrespectful to reject such a generous gift. So he informs that he is joining the Zhong family. However, there was a problem. His sister had a fever, so his sister needed to stay in the hospital. The Zhong family guy immediately understood everything and said that the girl would be taken with Qi Yue to the Zhong family's private hospital. After that, the guy went back to his sister's room. Everyone who came was furious at the guy's antics. Someone even remarked that such a guy couldn't be made to bow his head by power alone. The sister inquired what had happened. The brother reassured his sister, for they would be fine now. At this time, a raven was watching the conversation between the brother and sister on a tree branch near the hospital. In the evening of the same day, Qi Yue went to the Zhong family's house. There were many people in the Zhong family house. As soon as Qi Yue arrived at the Zhong family house, the atmosphere immediately changed. The guy was immediately surprised that someone with a level 1 pattern was able to enter the house. The man behind him even called Qi Yue pathetic. The girl, standing next to him, advised them to be quiet because the low-level guy had arrived with the manager. The guy was surprised that Manager Sun had personally invited such a weakling. Chi Yui walked along with the manager through the scornful gazes of the people present. Suddenly, a blond man with a glass of wine in his hands blocked their way. He inquired as to why Manager Sun had let the one-level guy in. Manager Sun respectfully addressed young Master Tsui and pointed out that this was Master Zhong's special guest, so the manager asked to let them pass. The blond man suspiciously yet contemptuously eyed the guy in front of him. He didn't understand how such trash could be a special guest. Manager Sun was still trying to be friendly and asked young Master Tsui to let them pass. However, at this moment, Chi Yui intervened in the conversation. It infuriated the blond man that some guy with a level 1 pattern decided to show himself as an important person. The blond man thought that low levels like the guy in front of him had no right to drink good wine. After that, he poured the rest of the wine in his glass on Chi Yui's head. Chi Yui noted that the blond man had started it himself. The blond man only smirked and was about to beat the guy up. However, at that moment, Chi Yui easily punched the blond man, who did not expect it at all. Tsui didn't understand why he couldn't transform. Chi Yui didn't give the blond man time to think and pinned him to the ground, demanding an apology. The blonde refused to apologize, and then Chi Yui slapped him again demanding an apology. After the educational measures, Chi Yui still received an apology from the blond man. Chi Yui thought that the guy in front of him was a weakling. Even though he was a high level, he couldn't even use his own strength. However, as soon as Chi Yui moved away from the blond man, he was immediately able to use his powers. Only now did Chi Yui realize that the red glow he saw was a sign of transformation. The blond man was furious and was about to finish the guy off. However, at that moment, a portal formed behind his back. A giant dog's mouth appeared out of the portal, and the blond man immediately freaked out, sensing something wrong. It was too late to react in time, and the arrogant blonde lost his head. Why must there always be someone arrogant who gets punished for his arrogance? What do you think of this manhwa? Many guests were incredibly startled by the sudden appearance of the giant. They didn't expect the monster to appear so suddenly in the Zhong family's house. Young Master Tsui was a level 5 pattern warrior, and the monster had so easily bitten him in half, so the other guests began to scatter in different directions. Manager Sun immediately ran up to the guy and told the guy to immediately run away with him. While Chi Yui was running away from the manor, he wondered to Manager Sun why none of the high-level guests intervene and stop the monster. However, Manager Sun points out that a high level of patterning does not make one combat capable. It is only after hard training that the pattern becomes battle-ready. Manager Sun sadly explains that because of the brutal training, many children in noble families do not survive, and that there are fewer and fewer of them left. Despite the fact that they turned on all their strength and ran at top speed, they couldn't run far, and the monster caught up with them, appearing right in front of them. Just when the guy thought that his and the manager's lives had come to an end, suddenly a pink-haired girl with 2 pigtails appeared in front of the monster and kicked her foot right into the monster's face. The pink-haired girl landed right in front of the guy and covered him with herself. After that, she told the guy to leave immediately to safety. Taking a closer look at the girl, he immediately recognized her and remembered how she had already protected him as a child. As a child, she had also told him to run to safety when 3 boys jumped him. The monster was unwilling to stand aside for long, for he was already eager to taste more of the prey that was in front of him. The girl also reacted instantly and summoned a giant axe. Using her axe, she intended to deal with the monster in a flash. However, the monster suddenly let out a monstrous howl. This howl as if created a powerful wave, and the girl with her axe in her hands was thrown aside. The girl flew towards Chi Yui, so he cushioned the girl's fall and immediately asked if the girl was all right. She was all red with embarrassment, considering the position she fell on the guy. The monster seemed to grow stronger after its terrifying howl, as if it had summoned a whole pack with its howl. All the monsters scattered in different directions and grabbed their prey that still couldn't escape. Just then, 4 monsters from the pack attacked the guy and the girl. The girl immediately grabbed the guy's hand and told him to run along with her. However, the moment they made contact with their hands, everything around them lit up with a pink glow, and all the monsters one by one were shattered. Once the dust settled, the guy was still in the same place, and he didn't understand why one would run away in such a situation. What surprised him more was that he was colored pink this time. The girl remarked that the pink color was incredibly cute, so she ordered that Chi Yui should destroy all the monsters with the pink axe. The guy, on the other hand, was only too happy to destroy all the monsters that appeared. The monster wasn't going to let up either, and it devoured the corpses of the monsters and summoned them again, much to Chi Yui's surprise. The guy chopped down every monster that approached him, swinging his axe again and again. Soon he noticed that there was no end to the monsters, and they were arriving again and again. In the heat of battle, the guy even asked the girl if she liked spinning around like a ride. However, the girl doesn't understand what he means, as she has never been on a ride, so she asks the guy to take her to ride the ride afterward. Chi Yui promises that they will go to the amusement park as soon as they manage to get rid of the annoying monster in front of them. He quickly spun around with the axe in one place for 360 degrees. As a result, Chi Yu created an artificial tornado with which he instantly dispersed all the summoned monsters. The main monster was not going to tolerate such insolence from the guy and ran at him with all its fury. After waiting for a moment, Chi Yui did not engage in direct confrontation with the monster, but simply threw the axe directly at the monster. The monster, which had recently run at great speed towards the guy, suddenly slowed down. In fact, a giant hole was formed in its body from the impact of the axe, which pierced through the monster. The defeated monster fell to the floor and its eyes closed forever, just like the ones it had managed to eat this evening. Just as Chi Yui sighed with relief and thought that it was already over, he and the girl once again split into two bodies. The girl immediately jumped into the guy's arms and rejoiced at their victory over the monster. She even demanded to go to the amusement park. At this moment, Zhong Yuyan burst into the house. She immediately inquired if the guy was okay. The first thing she saw was the guy lying on the floor with a pink-haired girl sitting on top of him. Zhong Yuyan's face even turned red at this moment. She immediately turned to Ms. Luo. Luo was also to see her junior. The guy was surprised to hear that Zhong Yuyan was considered the junior. Luo takes the girl by the hand and notes that she is a few years older than Zhong Yuyan. Zhong Yuyan apologized for scaring them. The girl wants them all to meet her father first and discuss the rest on the way to her father's house. As it turned out, not everyone escaped or was defeated. One guy standing in the corner sipping wine only smirked after all that he got to see. As soon as Chi Yui sensed that someone was hiding in the shadows, the guy immediately disappeared from sight. Zhong Yuyan asked the guy not to worry about anything, as the Zhong family would deal with all the mess that had arisen. Soon Manager Sun arrived, along with other underlings of the Zhong family. He asked all the survivors to leave the house accompanied by guards. The Zhong family was later going to explain everything that had happened. Zhong Yuyan immediately noticed that the monster that appeared in Zhong's house was exactly the same monster as the one that appeared in the shopping district. She notices that there shouldn't be such monsters because there are barriers above the Zhong family's house and the shopping district. Therefore, she didn't understand how the monsters could have gotten under the barrier. She even speculated that perhaps the barrier had already disappeared. Chi Yui immediately wondered if the barrier was the reason why he had become so strange. Zhong Yuyan didn't have an answer to that question, so she marked it as just one of the assumptions. Luo asked the guy not to be afraid. After all, she and Zhong are by the guy's side. Zhong Yuyan brought the guy to her father and knocked on the door and informed her father that she had brought Luo Zhang and Chi Yue. However, as soon as she opened the door, she was immediately hit in the face by a tea bowl launched in her direction. The girl was upset, and Luo Zhang was angry at the old man when she saw this. Zhong Yuyan's father immediately ordered everyone to kneel down. However, just as Zhong Yuyan was about to kneel down, Chi Yue grabbed her arm, preventing her from doing so. Chi Yue even apologized for his next words, but said that he was extremely displeased with Master Zhong's approach, by which he decided to demonstrate his power. The old man reminded the guy that this was a Zhong family matter and he would not allow outsiders to interfere. The girl jerked the guy's hand away with a frustrated look, hinting for him not to interfere in this situation. However, Chi Yui was not going to leave it like that, and resented that he couldn't imagine that noble families didn't know how to greet guests. After that, he defiantly turned around and was about to leave the house. Just at this moment, the old man couldn't stand it. and said that the last two monsters appeared because of the guy. However, the guy did not stop and left the Zhong family's house, closing the door behind him. Along with him, Luo Zhang also left the house, who found the old man incredibly annoying. Qi Yui noticed from the whole conversation with the old man that Zhong Yuyan did not have the warmest relationship with his father. Luo Zhang also noticed this, and also revealed that the old man had reduced Zhong Yuyan's mother to the grave. After that, Luo Zhang told him about the Zhong family. As it turned out, the number of levels in a pattern with a certain chance was inherited. To increase the chance of high-level patterns appearing in children in the next generation, some noble families even choose someone close to them to start a family. Qi Yui was surprised to hear this story and immediately understood everything. Luo Zhang confirmed his guess because Zhong Yuyan's mother was forced to marry her cousin, and after giving birth to a child, the woman lost her mind. Qi Yu finally began to realize that even in noble houses, things weren't that simple. The girl tried to smile and remarked that although it was not a secret, but she thought that she would rather let Zhong Yuyan herself tell the rest. Luo Zhang took her opportunity to immediately ask the guy if he wanted to join S Corporation and that it was a direct invitation from the boss. Qi Yui thanked the girl for the invitation and promised to think about her invitation. When he was about to leave the girl, she immediately asked him if he wanted to go to an underground auction with her. Qi Yui didn't understand why he needed to go to the auction. Luo Zhang was cunning, so she immediately reminded the guy about his sick sister. She said that she had heard that today's auction would feature an ancient jade that protected the body and soul. The relic was incredibly useful to the guy's sister. Just hearing about such an amazing item, Qi Yui instantly agreed. One could not come to the auction just like that and needed a proper costume. Qi Yui remembered that he had once applied for a job as an insurance agent, and so he bought one suit. Luo Zhang immediately discarded the option as it didn't fit, and offered to go and pick up a new suit for the guy. Soon the red-faced guy was standing in front of the mirror wearing the new suit Luo Zhang had picked out for him. She noticed that the suit looked very good on the guy and offered to buy two suits at once, but the guy refused. Suddenly, the son of some rich daddy noticed them. He immediately began to scoff that Luo Zhang had come to the store to pick out nice clothes for her boyfriend. However, Luo Zhang did not pay any attention to this blonde man and asked the store employee to pack two suits. The blonde man just got furious when he noticed that he was being ignored. He even remarked that he didn't expect Luo Zhang to prefer such smarmy guys at all. His girlfriend approached him to calm him down. However, he pushed her away and told her to get lost, as she had no right to say anything to him. The girl started to fall to the floor from such a blow, but at the same moment she was picked up by a charming red-haired girl who asked if the girl was all right. The red-haired girl immediately called the blonde man trash, because she thought that only trash would attack the weak. The blonde man thought he was the coolest and was about to beat up the red-haired girl. However, he was instantly punished when the red-haired girl kicked the blonde between his legs with her right foot. The blonde was lying pathetically at the feet of the red-haired girl, who called him a loser. Qi Yui had time to note that the girl was good. Just at that moment, a portal appeared behind the girl. Guy, stop attracting all possible and impossible bad luck already. He immediately shouted at the red-haired girl from the impending danger, but it didn't help, and the limbs that extended out from the portal grabbed the red-haired girl. Luo Zhang paid for the two costumes she had bought and only had time to turn around at the noise. She saw the guy grabbing the red-haired girl's leg while the red-haired girl was already half submerged in the portal. When Luo Zhang rushed to help the guy, the portal closed right in front of her. The girl had no idea what to do in this situation and how she could save Qi Yui. Being in the dark, as if in some kind of cave, the guy wondered if the girl who had gotten into this place with him was here. He was glad that they were okay. However, he shouldn't have touched the girl as she freaked out, thinking the guy was just another pervert. 3 flames of flame lit up above the girl's head. The guy tried to justify that he didn't mean anything by it, and reminded the girl that monsters could appear at any moment. The girl's hair suddenly became flaming, illuminating everything around her. She told the guy to move away from her, because if he didn't move away from her, she would definitely set everything on fire in this place. Qi Yue was not so impulsive and tried to think about why the monster had brought them to this special space. He noticed lightning fast that a monster started to appear from the ground under the girl, and so he pushed the girl aside. The girl was about to take out her anger on the guy who suddenly pushed her, but then she noticed that the shadowy spikes that came out of the ground pierced the guy's body. The girl immediately used her fire to save the guy. Her attack worked, and the shadow spikes began to disappear. Hoping that the girl was distracted by the injured guy, the shadow claws tried to attack her. However, with a gesture of one hand, the girl lightningly created a diamond-shaped fire dome around them, repelling the shadow monster's attack. She held the guy in her arms and told him not to pass out. The guy's eyelids, despite such support, gradually closed. As soon as his eyes sank into darkness, he remembered how he was once beaten up by other guys like he always was. They always mocked him and beat him up regularly, for he was the weakest in their eyes. In their eyes, he was not a human being, but just trash. Soon a red-haired girl with an umbrella came up to him, feeling sorry for the guy. All this time while he was being beaten, he kept the cake under him, not letting his abusers know about him. He wanted to give the cake to the girl since it was her birthday. The red-haired girl's name was Ling. Ling dropped the umbrella and cried loudly, even though it was pouring rain the whole time, although the guy asked her not to cry because everything was fine. Chi Yui slowly opened his eyes and informed the girl that everything was fine. The obvious tsundere immediately noticed that she wasn't worried about the guy, but worried that the guy would die trying to save her. The flames grew stronger and gradually enveloped the two of them. Eventually, the guy emerged from the flames. This time he even had giant wings on his back. The girl couldn't understand what was going on and why the guy was using her powers. Chi Yue was only now able to realize that he could merge with high-level pattern holders and use their powers. The girl was indignant, because then the guy had to ask her permission to do it first. Chi Yue immediately admitted that he didn't quite understand how this ability worked, and that this was only the third time for him. The girl was indignant, as this was the third time for the guy, and she didn't want to merge with the guy. Just at this moment, the monster started to make progress in destroying the dome. Therefore, Chi Yui decided that they would only be able to talk when they managed to get out of the situation. Don't believe him, he had already promised to take one girl to the rides right away. But he never did. The monster attacked the guy with his limbs, but he easily dodged the attack. The impulsive girl immediately told the guy not to hide, but to go into a frontal attack. As they gradually moved forward and dodged the attack, the guy noticed that there was something they still hadn't sorted out. The girl doesn't understand what the guy is even talking about. Chi Yue asked her the most important question, why they were chosen. The impulsive girl didn't know that. Then Chi Yu wanted an answer to the second question. Why were they dragged into this strange place and not just killed outside? The girl is outraged because she thinks she is super strong and that she can't just be killed. Chi Yue materialized fire in his hand and cast it aside. The girl didn't understand what the guy was doing at all. However, contrary to her claims, she saw the monster immediately reach for the fire and couldn't understand why the monster did that. Chi Yue explained to her that it seems like the monster wasn't actually interested in the girl, but only in the flames. Based on this theory, the monster grabbed the girl and dragged her to this place because it sensed her flame aura. Thinking along the same lines, the monster wanted to take the flame away from the girl. On the ceiling of the cave, right above the flames, they saw a cocoon, and it immediately made sense to them. Chi Yui immediately materialized a fire blade in his hand and rushed towards the cocoon, hoping to destroy it. The moment the guy touched the cocoon with his blade, the cocoon exploded. Chi Yui immediately realized that he had failed to destroy the cocoon. Just at that moment, someone appeared from the cocoon. A monster girl came out of the cocoon and said in a joyful voice that she had finally met him. The guy and girl immediately asked each other if any of them knew the monster that was in front of them. The girl monster stared menacingly at the guy and told him not to leave her side anymore, and then immediately rushed towards the guy. The guy nimbly dodged the monster's limbs that were sent in his direction. The guy wondered if the girl understood what was going on. The girl immediately sadly remarked that she understood everything. The monster girl frankly didn't understand why the guy wasn't approaching her. She flew up to the guy and hugged him. Only now Ling explained that she realized that the guy was being pursued by some perverted girl. She didn't expect at all that the monster would enjoy this kind of entertainment. Chi Yui became annoyed by such a situation and he pushed aside the monster girl, who had to jump back a considerable distance. The monster girl didn't understand why the guy was reacting to her like this and why something was wrong. Licking the monster girl decided that she would find a way to get the guy to come closer to her. The monster used a web to entangle the guy and prevent him from being able to move. However, the guy wasn't going to just give up and immediately blocked the web with a powerful fire attack. The web instantly burned up from the so powerful flames. Ling was shocked at what kind of powerful force the guy used. After that, the guy summoned a fire phoenix and sent it towards the monster girl. However, the monster girl was delighted by this, but still stated that the guy's attack was completely useless against her. At the same instant, shadowy spikes emerged from the ground and rushed towards the fire phoenix. Qi Yui was surprised that the flames were absolutely unable to harm the monster. The monster calmly blocked the fire phoenix's attack. Ling was also pondering about what they should do in this situation. Qi Yu immediately reminded the girl that they were in the monster's territory. Therefore, the longer they stayed in the monster's territory, the more trouble would await them. After analyzing the situation, the guy decided to take advantage of the fact that the monster was trying to catch him. Ling became curious as to what the guy was up to. Qi Yui confessed that the plan was simple but risky. First, he wanted to pretend to be weak so that the monster would grab him with its paws. After the monster would be distracted by something else, then he was going to break free and pierce the monster with his sword. Qi Yui only managed to come up with this plan. Ling thought this plan was too simple and also the risk was too high. The guy, on the other hand, realizes that they have no choice. After all, they are trapped in this space controlled by the monster, so they have to take the risks. Ling even apologizes, feeling that it's all her fault that they got into this situation. However, the guy remembers how the old man lastly stated that the monsters appeared because of the guy. Therefore, he's not sure if it's the girl's fault. After all, it's probably his fault. The guy decided to put all these speculations aside until they got out of the rotten place. Meanwhile, the monster's limbs were trying to attack the guy from all sides. In an instant, the unresisting guy was entangled by the monster's limbs. The monster was ecstatic that she finally managed to catch Lord. She even asked for Lord to be closer to her. The girl revealed that she had been looking for Lord for a long time. However, the guy immediately materialized a flaming sword in his right hand and pierced the monster with it. Suddenly, the girl appeared before his eyes as if she was from his memories. She happily brought her Lord tea. As soon as Lord only drank the tea she brought, he fell to the floor, and the girl had absolutely no idea what was happening. Just at that moment, an unknown man came and kicked the girl. He even taunted the girl that the pathetic puppet had fallen in love with the Lord. Returning to reality, Qi Yui couldn't understand where the events in front of his eyes arose from, like his memories. He even wondered if the girl wasn't lying and actually knew who he was. In her last words, the girl monster regretted what had happened and asked that the flames burn away the sins she had committed. Ling immediately noticed that the place they had gotten into was about to be destroyed. A moment later, they were back in the store and immediately split into two bodies. Ling put her arm around the guy and noted that he was incredibly cool. Suddenly, the guy found the wooden monster girl figurine he had recently destroyed in his hand. Luo Zhang saw the wooden figurine and immediately thought that it was a patterned helper. Aren't there too many coincidences and happened events in a guy's life in a few chapters? Why do such simple and naive plans work? Qi Yui was puzzled, completely unaware of what the girl was talking about and what the patterned helper meant. However, at this moment, the wooden figurine came to life. Qi Yui touched the miniature girl, surprised that she still survived his attack. Luo Zhang explained that the girl was most likely a guardian servant. After that, Luo Zhang decided to further explain what she was talking about to the still uncomprehending guy. A patterned helper is a doll that serves the owner of a high-level pattern. Patterned helpers were usually divided into two types. The first type were the serving patterned helpers. The second type of patterned helpers were the guarding ones. Xiaoling even began to scoff, looking at the petite girl, that the latter was the entertaining type. After all, the girl seemed very funny to Xiaoling. Luo Zhang had been in the mall all this time, not understanding what happened to Qi Yui, so now she was waiting for answers as to where the guy got the patterned helper from. Without quibbling, the guy explained that after he destroyed the monster, there was a wooden figurine left behind, so he took the figurine and brought it here. Luo Zhang was still worried about the guy. She explained to the guy that the patent assistant had made a contract with the guy and would obey him completely. However, she was still worried that suddenly the patent helper would be incredibly dangerous in the future. Xiaoling even apologized to the girl for dragging the guy into such a situation. Qi Yue was also going to be more careful next time. Luo Zhang was worried about the guy because she was completely helpless, not knowing how to help the guy who disappeared right before her eyes. Qi Yue thanked the girl for being so worried about him. He was still such a youngster in this area, so Luo Zhang's help was incredibly valuable. Since the guy felt guilty, Luo Zhang didn't hold back and invited the guy to join S Corporation again. Qi Yue once again became evasive, trying to shift the focus to the fact that they were going to the auction this evening, so they didn't have much time. Luo Zhang was upset that the guy basically refused to join her S Corporation again. Xiaoling understood deep down how desperate Luo Zhang was. Luo Zhang then revealed that after the girl and the guy were dragged into her space by the monster, then she contacted Zhong Yuyan and told her all the details of the incident. Therefore, after the guy was found, it was imperative to tell Zhong Yuyan that he was fine. In addition, Qi Yue's clothes needed to be changed, as after the battle and the dungeon, his clothes were all tattered. Qi Yue immediately became involved in the conversation, inquiring if Zhong Yuyan was all right. As it turned out, when Luo Zhang had called her recently, that girl had only briefly replied that she was fine. Xiaoling could no longer contain her laughter and laughed out loudly, causing the people present to be bewildered. She was amused that the guy was still worried about others. After all, judging from what she had seen and heard, the guy had been meeting monsters for the past few days, which meant that there was bound to be some surprise waiting for him at the auction. It was only at this point that it finally dawned on the guy that a lot of strange things had happened to him over the past few days and that he was turning out to be a total loser. After a while, there was an explosion in one of the buildings. Qi Yu, already holding his new girl in his arms, ran as fast as he could. After all, he had another monster situation that had become commonplace in recent days. Another giant monster couldn't resist the guy, as if it sensed the female's pheromones and rushed to get to know him better. The guy was furious and blamed Qing Qi for definitely jinxing him. Suddenly, the girl in his arms puffed up her cheeks and wondered who Qing Qi was. However, the guy was incredibly angry. He didn't understand why the girl cared about this particular question at this moment at all. Meanwhile, the monster had already caught up with them, about to trample the guy and the girl with its giant paw. 2 hours before the monster incident, Qi Yue and Luo Zhang arrived at the auction. The host came on stage to welcome all the guests and announce the start of the auction. They had prepared many rare items for today's auction. Therefore, the host hoped that each of the auction guests would be able to find an interesting item for themselves. Luo Zhang, Qi Yue, and Xiaoling were seated in the luxurious VIP guest box. Qi Yue was perpetually dissatisfied as always, not understanding why he was forced to dress so formally. Xiaoling thought that there were always some problems with the auction organizer. At this moment, Luo Zhang calmly said that Qi Yue could take pictures of anything he liked, because Zhong Yuyan had previously informed her that she would cover all the expenses. The guy was shocked to hear such coveted words. Xiaoling was also overjoyed at the news. However, her fervor was quickly cooled down by Luo Zhang, telling her that Zhong Yuyan would only pay for the guy's purchases. Qi Yue felt embarrassed at this moment. Luo Zhang didn't see it as a problem since Zhong Yuyan wanted to poach the guy into her family. Luo Zhang was also surprised to learn that Zhong Yuyan was willing to give up a lot to get the guy, because the girl was a real shark in the business world. Luo Zhang told the guy to prove indeed that he was worthy of Zhong Yuyan's efforts and time. The girl didn't even hide her feelings, admitting that she was incredibly jealous of Zhong Yuyan because she too wished she had so much money. Xiaoling could no longer contain her feelings. She was incredibly resentful because this auction was going to include an ancient weapon that she didn't have enough money for. She even grabbed the guy's leg, begging him to buy the weapon she needed for her, but the guy couldn't do it because he didn't have any money either. Xiaoling didn't understand what the guy was telling her. After all, she had just heard that Zhong Yuyan allowed the guy to take whatever he wanted at the auction. However, the guy wouldn't spend Zhong Yuyan's money, saying that this bid was just for him. Xiaoling thought the guy was greedy. Suddenly, Luo Zhang abruptly got up from the couch and walked to the mirror. The guy wanted to wonder what happened. However, at this moment, the host was about to move on to the next auction item. The host noted that the main surprise of this auction was about to be revealed. Once the mystery was revealed, the host announced that the world had been explored in search of ancient items. A photo of the first mermaid had only been taken 30 years ago, and now the second mermaid discovered was displayed in front of the auction guests. The mermaid was incredibly distressed and incredibly frightened. Suddenly, her gaze changed dramatically, and she looked directly at Qi Yui as if she sensed something. Luo Zhang noted with sadness in her voice that sometimes such goods appeared in the auction. Xiaoling thought that it was incredibly vile to display such goods. Luo Zhang, as the more experienced one, explained to the guy in front of them that there was a mermaid in front of them. Currently, the phenomenon of such people had come to be called atavism. She pointed out to the guy that he should have already noticed that people with high-level patterns displayed beast-like traits during battle. According to the information available, beast traits, like patterns, are part of Emperor Yu's power. So some people believe that the secret of Emperor Yu's power can be revealed in people who have returned to their ancestors. Xiaoling thought that perhaps such a definition was just acting as an excuse to hunt for similar non-humans, and that perhaps people were hunting for similar beauty of non-humans. At this moment, Qi Yui seemed to resonate with the mermaid, who couldn't take her eyes off of him. The guy finally gave up and asked Luo Zhang if Zhong Yuyan had set any prohibitions regarding what kind of items the guy could buy at the auction. Xiaoling couldn't believe that the guy had dared to do such a thing. She couldn't help but praise the guy for using Zhong Yuyan's money to buy a girl for himself. However, Qi Yui was of a different opinion. After all, he just wanted to save the mermaid. Xiaoling didn't care, since if Zhong Yuyan was there, she would have done the same thing. After giving Qi Yui and the girls enough time to talk, the host announced the start of the auction. He said that the starting price of the beautiful mermaid was 100 million. There were many rich people at the auction, so the starting price went up immediately. Someone gave 110 million, another outbid offering 130 million, then 160 million, a man offered 180 million. Next to them was the Qi family's box, whom Xiaoling politely called a pack of lunatics. Qi Yui, adding the price, couldn't even hide his smile anymore, anticipating that Zhong Yuyan would definitely reprimand him for spending such a gigantic amount of money. Xiaoling felt that they had no choice anyway, because if the mermaid fell into the hands of the Qi family, the mermaid would definitely be finished, so she wanted to save the mermaid. This gave the guy confidence, and he offered 310 million for the mermaid. The host was incredibly excited to hear that someone was offering such a sum of money for the mermaid. However, it seems like someone in the Qi family's box was clearly not happy about it. In the end, no one dared to outbid such a huge bid, and the host announced that the mermaid had been sold for 310 million. The guy was relieved and fell down on the sofa without strength. The girls were also satisfied, for they had managed to save the mermaid, albeit at Zhong Yuyan's expense. However, at the same moment, there was a massive explosion on the stage. The helpless host called out for help from anyone. As it turned out, a giant one-eyed monster appeared in the arena. The security system immediately sounded the alarm. The giant monster let out a monstrous roar, causing many of the auction guests to instantly react and rush to run as far away from the monster as possible. The mermaid was still intact, but trapped in a tank under the rubble of the building. Qi Yui's first thought was that they needed to save people at all costs. So Xiaoling grabbed the guy's hand, and the girls jumped straight out of the VIP box downstairs. Seeing that the guy was incredibly scared, Xiaoling didn't hold back and started teasing him about being afraid of heights. Once they reached the monster, Luo Zhang informed the others that she would hold the monster back, so Qi Yui and Xiaoling should get busy rescuing people. Summoning a giant axe, Luo Zhang resolutely rushed towards the monster, snarling at her. Qi Yui ran up to the mermaid first, asking if she was all right. Xiaoling told the guy to step aside as she decided to smash the aquarium with her sword. Once the aquarium was broken and the mermaid was in Qi Yui's hands, Xiaoling told him to start by carrying the mermaid away while she went to help Luo Zhang. The monster was quite strong, so even though Luo Zhang had already restrained it, it still attacked Xiaoling with its tentacles. Luo Zhang and Xiaoling both attacked the monster using their weapons, but to their disappointment, they were completely unable to even wound the monster. With the girls' pathetic attempts, the monster became enraged and let out a monstrous roar. It easily threw Luo Jiang and Xiaoling aside with its tentacles. The monster did not stop there, as it seemed that the girls were not the main course on its menu. The monster rushed towards the fleeing Qi Yui, who had a mermaid in his arms. So much trouble in 2 days is certainly something to have. If things keep going like this, he would soon be thrown out of the city so he wouldn't disturb the rest of the residents. Qi Yui ran as hard as he could while holding the mermaid in his arms, but the giant monster was already too close. As he continued to hold the mermaid in his arms, he dodged the giant monster's tentacle blows with great difficulty. At this time, all he cared about was how to get rid of the giant monster so that there would be at least one opportunity. The mermaid was already getting dizzy from his endless jumping. She began to scream and complain about how she was being treated. Qi Yue, on the other hand, looked at her with a look full of annoyance. The mermaid saw his facial expression and even cried. However, this irritated the guy even more, and he told the mermaid to stop crying. He brought his face as close to the mermaid as possible. But at that moment, the mermaid cried with incredible force that the tears literally rushed in a huge stream from her eyes. At the same moment, a bright blue aura enveloped the two of them. As soon as the glow disappeared, then instead of the guy and the mermaid appeared like a sea god. Powerful streams of water swirled around the sea god's body that even the giant monster stopped in place for a moment, slightly puzzled. Qi Yui at this time was as if he was on the seabed. He asked the mermaid what kind of place they were in and why the mermaid was in that place with him. The still crying mermaid began to look around. Qi Yui began to wipe the tears of the mermaid, who didn't understand what was even happening. He wondered if the girl could touch him too. Holding the mermaid's hands, the guy asked her again if this was her ability. Not waiting for an answer to his question, he didn't pursue the topic further, but reminded the mermaid that first they needed to get out and deal with the giant monster. Still a little disgruntled, the mermaid promised the guy that she would do her best. A bolt of lightning suddenly struck the body of the sea god's semblance. The mermaid immediately noticed that since it had returned, it seemed to be her ability. The guy explained to the mermaid that they had to deal with the beast first. Now their bodies were united and could only be separated after defeating the giant monster. He even decided to mess with the mermaid, asking her to make sure she didn't start crying again during the battle. At that, the guy summoned his trident. The monster wasn't going to wait to be easily defeated, so with a terrifying roar, it rushed forward to attack. The monster was incredibly fast, so the guy was only able to reflexively stab the monster in the eye with the trident at the very last moment, but nothing happened. Extending his right hand along with the trident, he attacked the monster's eye again, but the trident seemed to sink into the jelly and didn't do any damage to the monster. Qi Yui was disappointed and began to complain that there was no way he could hit the monster. The mermaid started crying again. Her face was incredibly red as she wondered what would happen at the end and if they would have a baby after everything. Qi Yui was incredibly surprised at what kind of nonsense a mermaid could think of when their lives were at risk. Because of his oversight, the monster took the chance and forcefully hit the guy with its tentacle, sealing him into the asphalt. The mermaid panicked that something had happened to the guy. She immediately inquired if her husband was okay. Qi Yue was in incredible pain after being hit so powerfully by the monster's tentacle. Taking advantage of the monster's hiccup, the guy plunged inside himself. In his inner world, he discovered a mermaid who once again inquired from her husband about his well-being. Grasping his head with his right hand, he asked the mermaid to call him Qi Yui. The mermaid began to apologize again, and tears continued to pour from her eyes. As she continued to cry, she began to blame herself for all of this happening because of her. Ever since she was a little girl, everyone around her blamed her for bringing misfortune and also called her a useless crybaby. No one wanted to communicate with her and be near her. Everyone avoided her. Eventually, the girl broke down under the pressure of reality. She began to blame herself for everything and that all the misfortunes of people were because of her. She apologized over and over again. She even thought that if she didn't exist, everyone would be happy. In the present tense, Qi Yui wiped the mermaid's tears. He pointed out that the girl shouldn't cry since it wasn't her fault, and she was actually a victim too. He told the girl to quickly calm down and send him back. The guy told the girl with a smile that everything would be fine this time and that they would be able to deal with the giant monster quickly. Back in his body, the guy was slightly surprised that the monster didn't attack him, but just watched. With incredible speed, Chi Yue rushed towards the monster. He dodged the monster's countless tentacles and then flew straight into the monster's mouth. The mermaid was shocked that the guy had just been eaten by the monster. However, actually penetrating through the mouth into the monster's body was the guy's original idea. Inside the monster, there were also tentacles that looked like ringworms and were circling around the guy. Chi Yue was surprised that there were similar small monsters inside the giant monster's body. The mermaid found all these monsters in the giant monster's body incredibly disgusting. One of the ringworms tried to attack the guy, but at that moment the barrier around the guy prevented the monster from doing so. He extremely disliked the situation, so he chopped down all the ringworms that were in his path. But still, there were too many monsters, and he hardly had that much time and energy to be inside the monster. The mermaid was incredibly scared of this whole situation and all these monsters. The barrier was able to repel almost all of the monster's attacks. Looking at the crying mermaid, Chi Yue couldn't help but admire her. Even though the mermaid cried a lot, she had incredible strength. The mermaid kept crying and apologizing, blaming herself for all the failures that happened to other people. Chi Yue noted that there was no truth in such words of the girl. He had already become annoyed with the girl's behavior, and he wondered why she kept apologizing and crying. The mermaid at that moment remembered her difficult childhood. She remembered how the woman had told her off, complaining that the little girl was always bringing trouble to other people. She immediately started apologizing to Aunt Song and promised that she wouldn't do it again. The aunt took the girl to a secluded place away from everyone. She told the girl that she should know that she was causing trouble to others, and that if she did something like that again, the aunt would punish her. The girl cried after all these words. At the same moment, the aunt bent down and picked up the pearl from the floor. And then the aunt once again locked the girl in a room that resembled a prison cell. Somewhere in that fog appeared the guy she was waving to in that fog. She started apologizing again for her actions. At that moment, the brightest pearl appeared in front of her, which illuminated all the darkness around her that she even stopped crying in surprise. The guy extended his hand in which the pearl was in and informed her that he had just picked up the luminescent pearl and that the girl should take it. The girl couldn't hide her smile and thanked the guy. Chi Yue felt that there was no need for gratitude towards him. After all, he had just found the pearl. Looking around the insides of the giant monster, he immediately noticed an unnatural growth inside the giant monster and realized that it was the giant monster's weak point. The girl finally began to realize that since the monster was hard to destroy from the outside, the guy had to get inside the monster to destroy it from the inside. The guy confirmed the girl's assumption. He even pointed out that the mermaid looked much prettier when it smiled. After that, Chi Yue became serious, concentrating the waters around him. Giving a spin, he rushed out holding the trident in his hand, attacking the giant monster's weak point. However, even inside, the monster was incredibly strong. Therefore, after spinning around again, the guy attacked the monster with his trident with incredible strength. The monster roared in pain, blowing its stinking breath at Luo Jiang and Xiaoling who had arrived. They were slightly surprised by the events, not realizing what was happening at all. In the same instant, a rotating trident appeared from the monster's body. And then, Chi Yue jumped out of the monster, glowing with a blue aura. After his pathos landing on both feet on the pavement, he immediately greeted the girls. The girls were surprised that the guy was able to defeat the giant monster. However, both girls were curious as to why the guy and the mermaid were all in the same body. As if remembering this, the guy turned his attention to the mermaid and asked her why they still hadn't split into two bodies. However, the mermaid didn't know the answer to this question either. Chi Yue found it strange that they still hadn't split into two bodies and returned to their original form. Luo Jiang asked the guy to remember how they were able to split into two bodies in the past times. Chi Yue only remembered that when the monster died, he and the girl would instantly separate and return to their original forms. All these conclusions made him think that perhaps the monster was still alive. However, the monster's remains had already started to glow and disappear. Now it was beginning to annoy him that somehow the fusion couldn't be undone and he couldn't return to his original body. The mermaid, on the other hand, told her husband to quickly find a solution to the problem. Luo Jiang, Xiaoling, and even Zhong Yuyan, who had come up and was red-faced, were surprised when they heard that the mermaid had called the guy her husband. The mermaid had definitely brought him bad luck, at least by calling him her husband. After all, the guy would now have to explain himself to the other three girls. He hadn't even remembered his sister in all this time until Luo Zhang reminded him when she wanted to call him to the auction. Soon Qi Yue to the axonic room, where the scientists and medics had gathered to examine the guy's health condition and why he hadn't returned back to human form. Luo Zhang, Xiaoling and Zhong Yuyan were standing outside the room. They were also showing the guy's sister through the tablet what was happening to him. Zhong Yuyan thought everything that was happening was strange, so she thought that she and Xiaoling needed to switch positions, which made Xiaoling puzzled. Zhong Yuyan informed the guy's sister that there was no need for her to worry about the guy as he was not seriously injured. Therefore, she recommended the girl to rest. Luo Zhang also believed that good children should rest well. Zhong Yuyan had to explain that Luo Zhang only behaves this way with people she likes. Therefore, she promised that the girl would soon get used to Luo Zhang's behavior. These words made Xiaoling instantly blush. Seeing that everything was fine, Lin Lin decided to leave the three girls and her brother behind and went to rest herself. Suddenly, she saw her older brother and immediately called out to him. The guy opened his eyes and tears flowed from his eyes at the same moment. Zhong Yuyan immediately got in touch with the doctors in the room and inquired about what was happening to the guy now. The doctors allowed Zhong Yuyan to enter the room. One of the doctors decided to tell her that after various examinations, all the doctors had come to a definite conclusion. After all the examinations, they were once again convinced that Qi Yue was just an ordinary person. The doctors couldn't even discover anything about the mermaid that the guy had merged with in one body. After listening to the doctor's report, Zhong Yuyan did not get angry, but simply said that the doctors could go rest and thanked them for their work. She asked the guy if his tears had anything to do with the mermaid. Qi Yue himself did not fully understand what was even going on with him. However, he noticed that as soon as the mermaid inside him started crying, he immediately started crying. Suddenly, the connection was broken, and the guy was once again in the depths of his subconscious, submerged in the water along with the mermaid. Clutching his head with his hand, he asked the mermaid what was even going on and why he was here. After all, he was talking to Zhong Yuyan at this moment. Still crying, the mermaid apologized to the guy. She confessed that while she was in this dark space, she was constantly thinking about the past. The guy tried to calm the girl down, promising to find a way to reverse the fusion so that they would split into two bodies again. So he asked for the mermaid to send him back so that he could solve the problem as soon as possible. After returning back to the consciousness of his body, the guy confessed to Zhong Yuyan that after merging with the mermaid in one body, the mermaid would sometimes pull him into a mysterious space. In that space, he can see and touch the mermaid. Time in the mysterious space does not stop, but continues to flow as normal. But he could not stay there for long. Zhong Yuyan was slightly surprised to hear about such an unusual mermaid ability. Tears began to flow from the guy's eyes again when he confirmed that it was most likely the mermaid's ability. Xiaoling noted that the mermaid's ability was quite strange, although she had expected something like this from a mermaid. The guy tried to make an assumption that everything was probably due to the fact that his and the mermaid's fusion in the same body had deepened. Zhong Yuyan thought that the guy's assumption made sense. She pointed out that scientists currently believed that it was a type of atavism, so it wouldn't be surprising if mermaids had some special abilities. Besides, people with high-level patterns also displayed beast traits during battle. Zhong Yuyan tried to remember what happened to her when she teamed up with Qi Yue, and also remembered the other girls who had also teamed up with Qi Yue. Xiaoling had an idea and asked the girl if the problem was that the doctors couldn't reverse the fusion in one body because of the mermaid atavism. Zhong Yuyan confirmed her assumption, considering it as one of the supposed options. Xiaoling thought that if they helped Lan Yuan return home, then maybe they could reverse the merging of the mermaid and the guy in one body. Looking at his sister and crying, the guy asked that Lin Lin not to worry about he and rest more. Lin Lin was worried about the guy, but still decided to follow his instruction and go rest. She herself sat sadly in the hospital room on the bed beside the clipboard. The girl was worried about her brother and also blamed herself for being incredibly helpless and unable to help her brother who needed help. She was frustrated that she was only dragging her brother down. At that moment, Patterned Helper flew up to her, holding a handkerchief in her hand. Patent helper held out the handkerchief to the girl. Lin Lin immediately started wiping her tears. She began to complain that if she wasn't there, her brother would be much happier. The next day, the guy left the room with the doctors. He put a hood over his head and tried not to stand out. However, the guy still kept crying. The most amazing thing was that after so many tears, his eyes didn't even swell or turn red. People around began to notice the guy's tears. One of the guys asked another guy to pay attention to Qi Yue because he seems to be being subjected to domestic violence. The other guy also noticed that Qi Yue was in tears. Both guys concluded that girls like the one walking in front of Qi Yue were undesirable and they would never want to date one. Upon hearing the guys' conversations, Xiaoling even started laughing. She noted that everyone around them was now judging her that she was making the guy cry. Dramatically crying, the guy felt that it was still considered domestic violence. Xiaoling's face immediately turned red. She reminded the guy that Luo Zhang and Zhong Yuyan were unfair to her since they sent Qi Yue along with her to send Lan Yuan home with the two of them. At that moment, Zhong Yuyan found an excuse that the Zhong family had other things to deal with, so she ran away first. Luo Zhang also immediately made the excuse that she had just gotten a phone call and needed to run away. The guy pointed out that the way the girl viewed the current situation did look a little strange. Luo Zhang agreed with the guy that the situation looked strange. Qi Yue decided that the girls seemed to be avoiding something, and he didn't think so for nothing. At the same instant, a car stopped in front of them, and following from the car, a red carpet rushed away from the car, which was directed towards the guy and the girl. All this caused the guy and the girl to be bewildered. A man came out of the car, who hurriedly opened the door to his boss. A man with a beard and wearing a raincoat came out of the car. He immediately approached Qi Yue as close as if he wanted to kiss him. Qi Yue was not going to kiss the old man, so he told the old man to stay away from him, trying to punch the old man. However, as if inhaling the disgusting smell from the man's mouth, the kid recognized the man. It was his father. The old man immediately cried upon seeing his child. The son also cried upon seeing his father. The guy finally came to his senses, and it turned out that the old man was actually Lan Yuan's father. The old man tried to hug the guy, but Qi Yue cleverly dodged the old man's embrace. The guy tried to explain what happened to the old man's daughter. However, the old man stopped the guy's explanation. He admitted that Zhong Yuyan had already told him everything, so he decided to postpone their conversation until they got home. The old man's house was a giant mansion, so the old man didn't need money. Seeing the old man's giant mansion, the guy was in a huge shock. The guy irritably wondered how the mermaid could have been kidnapped in the first place. Covering her face in shame, the girl admitted that she ran away without saying anything to her father. The guy wasn't much convinced by the girl's answer. Guiding them through the corridor of the giant mansion, the old man asked them about the main goal, that it was necessary to cancel the merger of the mermaid and the guy in one body. The old man had already prepared himself to solve the problem that had arisen. A frightening door appeared in his giant mansion. The old man informed the guy that the solution to his problem, the guy must pass a test on the other side of the door. Qi Yue didn't quite understand what passing the test had to do with cancelling the process of merging him and the mermaid into one body. The old man explained that by passing the test outside the door, Lan Yuan would have to learn to control her strength, and if the girl learned to control her strength, then would then be able to allow the fusion of the two bodies in one body to be broken. Grabbing his head with his right hand as if suffering from a headache, Qi Yue thought that the way to solve their problem that the old man suggested was some kind of cheat code, but he had no other choice. The old man was counting on the guy to help his daughter pass the test. Looking at the frightening portal door, Qi Yue asked the old man how he should enter the door. The old man himself didn't know all the details. He had heard that the test that was behind the door had been left for the sea people by the Ghost King. To enter the door, the guy just had to touch the door. Seeing the worry on the lad's face, the old man himself became worried and thought that they might need to prepare before the lad could enter the door. However, the guy was filled with confidence and refused the old man's offer. He told the old man to just wait for them near the door. He needed to get rid of the problem urgently, so he was not afraid and immediately decided to put his hand on the door. At the same instant, the guy's figure began to blur and he disappeared. Seeing the crying old man, Xiaoling asked him if he was really Lan Yuan's father. Meanwhile, Qi Yue and Lan Yuan moved to a place that resembled the seabed. The guy asked Lan Yuan how scary the trial was in this place. Unfortunately, the girl didn't know all the details of the test, as she had never dared to even try to pass the test. Qi Yue hoped that the girl at least knew what the trial was. Luckily for the guy, Lan Yuan had heard that the trial was in 3 stages. However, they couldn't finish their conversation quietly because suddenly a fire appeared behind them. The guy instantly noticed the change and immediately fearfully started running away. Behind him, as if a volcano began to erupt, and lava poured with great speed after him. He concluded that it looked like the first stage of the trial was testing his physical endurance. Right in front of him, he saw a giant axe, as if he was undergoing some classical test or looting ancient tombs. At the last moment, he jumped into the air above the axe, and behind him, fish started jumping out of the water. Showing incredible flexibility for a man, he jumped away from the wall, and just behind his back an explosion went off. Despite the explosions, the guy ran as fast as he could, while the lava and flames behind him tried to catch up with him. Cool guys don't look at explosions, so he didn't either. He even breathed a sigh of relief. After all, this was just a test of physical endurance. However, running at full speed underwater was too tiring, though he managed to get by. Suddenly, the mermaid grabbed the guy's hand and informed him that her husband was amazing. The girl hugged the guy and informed him that if it wasn't for the guy, she would have failed a long time ago. The guy's face instantly turned red, but he still asked the girl again not to call him her husband anymore. Suddenly, some sort of whirlpool appeared underneath Qi Yue. Then the energy obtained from the whirlpool began to gather into a single entity. Seeing a copy of his current self in front of him, consisting of water, the guy realized that the second test was to fight with himself. The unimpressive water clone waved the guy to fight him. Qi Yue did not cry for the first time in a long time, but smiled. After all, the situation and the test now seemed interesting to him. The water clone swung the water whip towards the guy. However, the guy easily caught the water whip with his hand. He even felt a little sad because suddenly that was all the water clone could do. However, at this moment, the water clone smiled insidiously and let go of the water whip's handle. Only now did Qi Yue notice that the remnants of the water whip in his hand began to disintegrate. A water tornado began to form from the drops of the water whip, and the water tornado instantly formed and tossed the guy's body and spun around. The water clone didn't stand aside and wait for the outcome, but rushed towards the guy. At this moment, Qi Yue surfaced from the water tornado and tried to attack the water clone. The mermaid has given the guy problems, and he still has to take care of his sister, not crying all day long. The water clone was a bit taken aback by such a sudden lunge from the guy in its direction. But with great speed, Qi Yue struck the water clone with his right fist, and then putting power into his punch, finished the water clone with a powerful right leg kick. At full speed, the water clone collided with a rock, and then its body began to sprawl, losing its original shape. The girl was in awe at how amazing the guy was. Suddenly, a blue blob of energy flew out from his body. In the same instant, the girl appeared in front of the guy. She was surprised that she was able to return to her physical form again. It seemed strange to them. The mermaid noted that despite the fact that they were still in the same body, she could now touch the guy. The guy was also surprised by this fact. Suddenly, Lan Yuan felt something strange, and her face changed. Qi Yue tried to ask her what happened. The mermaid stepped forward and hugged the guy. With a trembling voice, she admitted that a memory had come over her. It was an illusion sent to her during the ordeal. The guy asked the girl not to be frightened. He was slightly surprised that the girl was so scared about the trial. Qi Yue didn't find this whole ordeal too dangerous as he had originally thought. Tears reappeared in the girl's eyes as she was incredibly hurt and scared. Now the guy realized that it looked like it was time for the third trial. The girl admitted to her aunt that she was wrong. The aunt noted that the girl had finally figured it out. She looked at the girl with an incredibly horrified face and then asked what the girl specifically thought she had done wrong. Yuan was all trembling with fear. She tried to say what she shouldn't have done. But the aunt was furious about it all, and she grabbed the girl, saying that the girl shouldn't ask to hire more babysitters. She began to mentally pressure the girl, As if it wasn't enough for the girl to have her, the woman hugged the girl and, with a frightening expression on her face, declared that she was the only one who truly loved and cared for Lan Yuan. She then looked at the girl and asked her what she wanted for lunch. Lan Yuan wanted to say that she wanted to eat, but the woman interrupted her. The woman said that the children needed to eat more vegetables, so she was going to make one dish. However, at this moment, Qi Yue appeared. He sadly noted that even if it was an illusion created by the ordeal, it was still unbearable to endure. The woman abruptly turned around to look at the one who dared to interfere with her. The guy walked over to the woman and pointed out that Lan Yuan hadn't even said that she wanted to eat. After the guy said that, the woman suddenly laughed at the top of her voice. She pointed her finger at Lan Yuan, informing her that she was just a small child, and a small child knew almost nothing. They immediately returned underwater. The woman's body began to slowly change and transform. Her arms began to transform into wings, and then her entire body, except for her head, began to transform into a bird-like shape. Lan Yuan was startled when she saw what her aunt had turned into. After that, the bird-like woman tried to attack the guy and the girl. However, the guy reacted with ease, covering them with a water shield and preventing the woman from even hitting them. The monster was angry, not understanding why the girl was rejecting her like this. She reiterated that she was the only one in the world who truly loved and cared for Lan Yuan. At this point, the mermaid took courage, noting that what the woman was doing was not love at all. Her aunt was controlling, locking her in her room as if she was in a prison, manipulating her. And all these actions the aunt calls love. The mermaid suddenly confessed that she has many people who actually love her. From such words of the girl, the woman was surprised. The girl's face even turned red at this moment. The guy also found the girl's last words a bit strange. And then she suddenly declared that the guy next to her is actually her husband. Although the guy asked her not to call him her husband, the girl still continued to do so. The woman was incredibly furious. She declared that if the guy dared even touch the girl with a finger, she would take his life. Rushing towards the guy, the woman tried to attack him with her claws, causing huge clouds of dust. However, Qi Yue managed to cover himself with a shield of water and was completely unaffected by the monster's attack. At this moment, the woman's wings were bound by the water tangles. The guy asked the woman if she knew that mermaids could control the water with their emotions. With anger and effort, the woman was still able to free herself from the water ties. Smiling, the guy asked the woman if she knew that water could also cut. The guy's words only angered the monster even more. She rushed towards the guy at full speed. However, the guy simply asked the mermaid to stop relying on others and get angry too if necessary. The poor girl, intimidated since childhood, didn't realize if she could even get angry. But the guy stated with a smile that she could try to do so. Lan Yuan closed her eyes, and as soon as she opened her eyes, her pupils changed and the aura around her raged. The emotions inside the girl raged, and she directed all her anger towards her aunt, who had been bullying her for a long time and whom she was afraid of. The monster was attacked by the water current to the bottom. The girl successfully dealt with the monster that embodied all of her childhood fears. Bloody tears flowed from the monster's eyes as it desperately called the girl's name. Lan Yuan, unable to bear it alone anymore, pressed herself against the guy's back and closed her eyes. After that, the monster began to dissolve and disintegrate before their eyes. The girl began to swim up to the guy again. Just at that moment, the girl's body began to change and her tail transformed into legs. And the girl landed in the guy's arms as they once again separated into two bodies. With a flushed face, the girl happily informed the guy that it seems they were able to successfully complete the challenge. Qi Yue noted that the girl was now not crying even at such a moment. Lan Yuan admitted that she actually wanted to cry, but seeing the guy, she immediately smiled. At the same moment, the man behind them stood behind the door and congratulated them that they had succeeded in passing the test. The father and daughter looked at each other, and tears immediately appeared in their eyes. The father named his daughter Yuan Yuan. Then the father was finally able to hug his daughter, whom he hadn't seen for so long. Qi Yue inquired that the girl's nickname was Yuan Yuan. The guy standing next to him confirmed his guess. Qi Yue admitted that the 3 trials were quite difficult, and especially the third one. The guy was surprised to hear about the 3 trials. He explained that there were actually only 2 trials, body and mind, And in fact, the master had only reported 3 trials because it sounded cooler. Qi Yui reported that they had encountered the 3rd trial, which was most likely Lan Yuan's childhood nightmare. He wondered if the monster woman was an illusion, because the woman looked like some kind of monster. At this moment, an old man approached him. He hugged the guy and then informed him that he approved of the marriage between the guy and his daughter. The butler confessed that he had not seen the master so happy for a long time. The girl was even embarrassed to hear such words from her father. Suddenly, the old man's tone of voice became serious as he informed the guy that his soul and his daughter's soul led them to meet. Qi Yui pondered over the old man's words as he had already started to suspect something because of the past few days. However, at that moment, the old man smiled again and winked at the guy. He wanted to get along first with the guy who would soon call him Daddy. Looking at the girl who was getting excited, the guy reluctantly agreed to chat with the old man. Lan Yuan was so happy that her future husband and her father could get along. Qi Yui told the old man that they had encountered the 3rd trial. The old man was already aware that the 3rd trial was an illusion. The old man noted that he had originally heard about the 2 trials. His wife had told him about the 2 trials, and she definitely wouldn't lie to him about something like that, so there had to be 2 trials. The guy wanted to object, but then changed his mind. He informed everyone present that his younger sister was waiting for him at home, so he needed to go to her. The guy explained that his sister was not well. The old man got worried, but Qi Yui clarified again that the Zhong family had taken over his sister's treatment and the girl had started to recover. Therefore, he promised to introduce them to his sister once his sister was better. Reluctantly, the old man agreed to his decision. Leaving the villa, the guy headed towards the car, saying goodbye to the old man and Lan Yuan before leaving. The old man and Lan Yuan also waved back to the guy, saying goodbye to him. The old man invited the guy to visit them again sometime. Sitting in the car during the trip, Qi Yui thought more and more about the past few days. There were too many mysteries piled up on him in the past few days. He pondered on whether the auction that sold the mermaid was really just a coincidence, or if there was some mystery behind it. The guy suddenly wondered if the last mermaid that was auctioned off was related to the Lan family. In addition, the guy wondered why the gate leading to the mermaid trial was at Lan Yuan's house. In addition to these oddities, there was also a 3rd trial. The guy couldn't figure out if the moment he saw in the 3rd trial was really just an illusion. In the end, he decided to let go of these thoughts, deciding to proceed one step at a time. After a while, Qi Yui met up with Luo Zhang. As soon as he arrived, the girl greeted him. He immediately asked what business the girl had with him since she wanted to meet him early in the morning. Luo Zhang didn't dodge his question and immediately admitted that she called him to introduce him to S Group and get the guy involved. Walking through the lab together with the girl, Qi Yui was surprised that there were so many people in S Group. Luo Zhang did her best to explain to him that S Group, in just a few short years, relying on its strength, was able to make its way among aristocratic families. The girl proudly admitted that S Group's most famous items were the power armor and beginner's training. Just at this moment, the guy and girl were fighting, so Luo Zhang was able to visually demonstrate her words. She also pointed upward and then explained that Qi Yui need not worry about being drawn into the battle, because the battle zone is protected by a barrier. The green-haired girl then informed the sparring pair that training was suspended as Director Luo appeared. The girl and the guy who were still fighting a short while ago instantly stopped their fight. The girl quickly put away her battle suit for training and then said hello to Director Luo and the handsome young man. The guy tensed up a bit but said hello to the girl in return. What caught his attention more was the suit the blonde man was wearing. The guy standing next to him asked Qi Yui if he wanted to try out their costume. Qi Yui thought that it would be slightly inappropriate. However, the purple-haired girl calmed him down by saying that this thing was quite easy to operate. In the end, she managed to convince the guy to at least try out the battle suit. Qi Yui stood in the indicated place and then inquired about what he should do next. The battle suit was instantly put on him and then he abruptly took off. The guy told the battle suit to stop and then tried to contact Luo Zhang, but he was unable to contact her. Qi Yui couldn't understand where such a situation would lead him and how he could get out of it. There's only one thing to say. The swing he's been on for the past few days is definitely incredibly strong, and he's never bored. When can we expect the guy to declare himself an Iron Man and reveal that his real name is Tony Stark? The guy in the battlesuit flew outside the laboratory at high speed. He tried his best to contact Luo Jiang and her team, but he was having no luck. Looking forward, he even thought that this was the destination chosen by his battlesuit. The guy saw that this place was just an ordinary mountain. However, rather quickly he changed his mind. Looking around, he couldn't hide his surprise. With the help of the battlesuit, he flew to some kind of experimental base. The doors of one of the rooms opened and the battlesuit directed the guy right there. Then, sneaking into the room, the guy noticed that the room seemed to be waiting for his arrival, as there were a lot of military people around. He even wondered if the people here were competitors of S Group, or if they were internal spies. Almost immediately, a girl came out to Qi Yui. She greeted him and was happy to see him for the first time. The girl also announced that her name was Fu Shui and that she was one of the directors of S Group. Next to her was Liu Yun, the director of the research department. Qi Yui was not going to be polite, immediately demanding an explanation as to why he was dragged here alone. The energetic Fu Shui cheerfully stated that she wanted to help solve Qi Yui's problem. She got straight to the point, pointing out that she was well aware that the guy had been having a headache lately due to the problem of merging into one body with someone. Therefore, the girl decided that they could solve his problem together. From her mouth, the solution to the problem that had arisen sounded good, but he extremely disliked that there were too many military men here at the same time, as if he had been taken into custody, and if he refused, he would be forcibly forced to participate. After that, the girl led him to follow him deeper into their base. Looking around, the guy didn't really know if Luo Jiang and the others would be able to find him, considering how hidden he was now. While walking through the base, Fu Shui told him that it was the S Group's secret experimental base. The direction for research on this basis is to improve the effectiveness of appearance and increase of patterns in ordinary people. The guy didn't fully understand what the girl was telling him. Fu Shui then explained that patterns were not immutable and that with years of training, low-level patterns could become high-level patterns. However, the process of raising the level of a pattern is incredibly rigorous, and very few people are able to endure it. Therefore, for the vast majority of people, the number of patterns is fixed from birth. Guy guessed that perhaps the process of merging into one body increases the number of patterns. Thus, he concluded that Fu Shui had brought him to this base to try to figure out how to quickly increase the number of patterns when the process of merging two people in one body. Fu Shui couldn't hide her smile, realizing that she was not mistaken about the guy, and he understood everything from the first time. However, the guy pointed out that this whole operation didn't seem like any kind of legitimate research. After all, if it was legitimate, they wouldn't have needed to secretly kidnap him without even telling Luo Jiang. Liu Yun couldn't just ignore the words said by the guy, but still remained silent. Qi Yue pointed out that it looked like they had already sent people to put pressure on Luo Jiang. However, the guy reminded her that he was missing in Luo Jiang's area of influence, so all the forces interested in him were unlikely to miss such an opportunity. However, Fu Shui only grinned in response to his words. She stated that stalling was useless. The military man behind him immediately jabbed his weapon at him, telling him to continue walking forward. In the same instant, a horrifying sight appeared before the guy. Many people were trapped in glass tanks. Seeing the guy, the girl with animal ears on her head in one of the glass tanks even smiled. Qi Yui asked Fu Shui if he could listen to what the girl was saying. Fu Shui informed that such a thing was possible, but she thought that such failed products were not even worth the guy's time. Qi Yui grabbed the tablet from Fu Shui's hands. He wondered why she was calling him out. The girl's eyes lit up with hope. She happily announced that her brother had finally come to take her home. Tears appeared in the girl's eyes as she complained about the current treatment of the disease and how much pain she was in. In addition, she confessed that she missed her mom a lot. The aura around the girl changed drastically and her eyes turned bright red as she desperately declared that she wanted to go home. Fu Shui informed him that the experimental DL006 subject was exhibiting an overload reaction, suggesting elimination. The guy suddenly became overly emotional and asked the girl to calm down so that her brother would take her home. The girl immediately smiled and began to calm down. However, at that moment the military shot at her, announcing that she was finished. The guy was just furious at such a military man's prank. But Fu Jue said that the girl should be proud of it because she, like the others, sacrificed herself for the evolution of mankind. The military immediately surrounded the guy, but he didn't flip out and pointed out that in such a case, the sacrifice should be voluntary. However, Fu Xue responded to his rebuke by explaining that they had all signed a contract and were also given money. Qi Yue rightly pointed out that this was not the case with him at all. Fu Xue admitted that it was her mistake after all, the guy is unique. With a slightly flushed face, the girl inquired about what the guy wanted. Without thinking long, Qi Yue took Fu Xue hostage, politely asking the others not to move, as otherwise he would kill the hostage. However, this action of the guy only made the girl smile and then laugh. The guy couldn't understand why the girl was laughing. After all, even though he had a small laser sword in his hands, it was still possible to kill someone with it. Looking at the guy and touching his face, she felt sorry that the guy was not willing to cooperate with them at all. Looking at him with a frightening smirk, she informed him that the guy was still completely unaware of how valuable he was. After all, she considered herself completely useless compared to him. Therefore, the mad scientist Fu Xue was happily willing to sacrifice herself. When the guy got worried about her and let his guard down, she only glared at him with a chuckle. As he continued to call the girl crazy, the military managed to grab him. But the girl wasn't embarrassed in the slightest. She noticed that the guy was still too kind since he was even worried about her life. The guy didn't understand why they should become like these scientists who had lost their humanity and were willing to harm their own kind. Fu Xue again pathetically declared that it was all for the sake of humanity. For the sake of humanity, it didn't matter whether it was about him or her. While he was focused on her, a syringe of sleeping pills entered his body. The guy's eyes slowly began to close, and then the military quietly took the rowdy visitor to the place prepared for him. Soon they had many sensors hooked up to his body. Looking at his vitals, they noticed that all the data was normal. The guy's heart rate was also normal. So they decided to do a pain level test. The guy only had time to open his eyes before he was immediately struck by an electric shock. He immediately lost consciousness. The man standing next to him said that they should record the data correctly. At the same time, the military men standing outside the room saw the man with glasses arrive. They immediately grabbed their weapons, pointing them at the man and asking who he was. After a while, Qi Yue regained consciousness. The first person he saw was a man with glasses. The man asked the guy if the guy still chose people. Hesitantly, the guy replied that yes, of course. At the same instant, the man with glasses snapped his fingers. The metal constructs on the guy's arms unclenched and he was released. Looking at the scientists, he asked what had become of them. The man with glasses, while correcting his glasses with his hand, calmly stated that they were dead since he had killed them. Qi Yue stood up, got dressed and calmly walked past the man with glasses, saying goodbye to him. The man had not expected this at all. He even remarked that the guy should at least ask him something. Since the man himself insisted on doing so, Qi Yue decided to ask him who he was and why he had freed him. He also wondered if the fact that he was able to team up with other pattern holders and attract demonic beasts had anything to do with the man. The man with the glasses broke out in a cold sweat at these questions. He explained to the guy that he couldn't answer the first two questions, and the answer to the last one was that he had nothing to do with it. After figuring out these details, Qi Yue politely thanked the man in glasses for his rescue. Qi Yue then calmly left the laboratory. Left alone, the man kicked the chair in front of him with all his might. Nevertheless, having shown his emotions, he did not think about the consequences and sat down and grabbed the injured leg from such a blow. At that moment, another man with silver hair approached him. The man even began to banter with him, noting that since his training wasn't top-notch, he should have found another way to vent his emotions. The man with glasses was upset because Qi Yue still chose people. The other man asked him not to worry so much, for after all, Qi Yue had grown up as a human being. In addition, he said with a smile that when Qi Yue fully understood the essence of humans, he would definitely choose to return to their side and would no longer be on the side of humans. Meanwhile, Qi Yue reached the giant hall he had been in before, where there were other people in glass tanks. At the same instant, an alarm went off, announcing an alert. It was announced to everyone on the base that the experimental subject had escaped. One of the military spotted him and immediately told the others where he was. The military began to run towards him and surround him, preventing him from escaping. However, at that moment, all the glass tanks containing the subjects started cracking one by one. The guy couldn't understand how the glass could suddenly crack just now. One by one, the test subjects, who were about to be elimination a while ago, began to come out of the glass tanks. The military began shooting back at them, requesting reinforcements as the unsuccessful research subjects organized an escape. The military man grabbed his radio and repeated loudly again that he was requesting reinforcements. The other military man started shooting back at the other research subjects, and he had Qi Yui in his line of fire, who still didn't understand what he should do in this situation. His head was immediately flooded with thoughts of the test subjects who had been deemed defective and eliminated right before his eyes. Some of them complained about the disgusting people, some of them wanted to go home, some were in pain and scared, some wanted to see their mom. The guy tried to figure out what that sound was in his head right now. After a moment, he finally realized it was the voices of other people being treated like test subjects. The test subjects couldn't go home anymore, but they thought the guy should go home, so they asked over and over again to let him go, and asked him to flee on his own, while they themselves threw themselves under the bullets of the military to detain the military. Even Fu Shui, who had previously kindly given him a place to stay, came running to the commotion. The emotions and desires of the dead people seemed to turn into a blob of energy that rushed towards the guy. Fu Shui was happy, for perhaps the unification that the guy possessed was not limited to just two people. However, a moment later, she was no longer so cheerful. For Qi Yui easily rushed past the military and grabbed Fu Shui by the throat with his hand, lifting her up with one hand. But who knows, maybe Fu Shui would like even this kind of thing. And that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you would like to see a sequel, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your wishes in the comments. You can also subscribe to Telegram to know about new videos. Bye everybody.